If you're shopping for a home theater receiver and you aren't sure which one to get, we have compiled a list of the top 5 AV receivers that you can buy today that will fill all of your surround sound and maybe even your hi-fi needs. So let's jump into it. Before we get started, the receivers on this list had to meet 3 criteria. They had to sound great for both music and movies. They had to have support for the latest video formats and tech because if we're going to be spending money, we want to be as future-proof as possible. And finally, they had to be smart receivers, connecting to your home's Wi-Fi or allowing you to stream directly to them with things like Bluetooth and AirPlay. Now on with the list. This sub $600 AV receiver truly has it all. No firmware updates required. And while it's not quite as powerful as some of the other receivers on this list, the 5100's 80 watts per channel is still good enough to drive most mass market speakers from the likes of Klipsch, Polk Audio, and JBL to cinema-like levels. But don't think that sound quality is just loud with no finesse. It's not. The 5100 is actually pretty refined when paired with speakers with a sensitivity of 89 dB or higher with an impedance that doesn't dip below 6 ohms or so. It even sounds incredibly good for 2-channel listening. Warning, this receiver does not have a built-in phono preamp. If you want to enjoy the occasional record and your turntable does not already have a built-in phono preamp, this is not the receiver for you. The good news is the 5100 supports 8K 60 and 4K 120 out of the box, so those of you with next-gen gaming consoles like the PS5 or Xbox Series X can enjoy gaming at higher resolutions and frame rates from day one. The biggest drawback to the NR5100, at least for me, is its build quality, which isn't quite as good as Denon, Marantz, Yamaha, or even other ONKYO receivers. The good news is the 5100's build quality doesn't affect its performance, so if you can overlook its small pushpin style binding posts and thinner aluminum used throughout the chassis, you will have a truly capable receiver with arguably more features than a lot of other receivers on the market right now, but for less money. I love this AV receiver. First off, the NR1711 doesn't look like an AV receiver, and that it isn't just another large black box with a bunch of nondescript buttons. The 1711 looks a lot like a Marantz integrated receiver, meaning you can hide it in plain sight. And because of its size, you also don't need specialty AV furniture in order to house it. Aside from its form factor, the 1711 is very refined sounding, with a rich, full-bodied sound that is very indicative of the Marantz brand. It's absolutely terrific in stereo, making this one of the better hi-fi and home theater receivers on the market right now, especially if you have a budget vinyl rig, as the built-in phono preamp is actually pretty good. The 1711 is a little limited with respect to power, rated at only 50 watts per channel in stereo, with its multi-channel power rating likely falling well below 50 watts. Still, you wouldn't necessarily know it when listening. If your speakers are 89 dB sensitive or higher, I seriously doubt you're ever going to tax the 1711 despite being the least powerful receiver on this list. Like the ONKYO 5100, the 1711 is ready to take advantage of next-gen video formats like 8K 60 and 4K 120, though you are limited to only one HDMI input being next-gen capable, which is kind of a bummer, though not a deal breaker for me. If you have both a PS5 and Xbox Series X and you want to connect them both, that is at the same time, to your AV receiver at the highest possible quality, you may want to consider other receivers on this list. But if you're just looking for a capable receiver that has some support for next-gen video features, then the 1711 is definitely worth your consideration. The X3700H from Denon borders on perfect for me. This 9.2 channel AV receiver has the requisite power to drive most any loudspeaker on the market, but if its 105 watts isn't enough, it has full preamp outputs for 11.2 channels, meaning you can add third-party amplifiers to the 3700H for more power and flexibility. Those of you with difficult to drive speakers like, say, Magnapans that want to expand into home theater should potentially consider the 3700H, but on its own, it sounds fantastic, especially when watching Dolby Atmos encoded films. And the Odyssey room correction does a great job in tailoring your speaker sound to fit your room, providing for a very clear and dynamic presentation. And like the Marantz NR1711, the 3700H is ready for next-gen video formats, though it is limited to just one HDMI input. That said, unlike other receivers on this list, if you have older video formats or players still hanging around your home, the 3700H will work with them and in some instances even upscale their video quality. Those of you who like vintage console gaming, you need to take note. The Pioneer is somewhat a baby ONKYO RZ50, though it lacks a lot of the ONKYO and frankly the Denon's expandability with respect to preamp outputs. So if you are looking for an AV receiver that is going to potentially allow you to grow your setup by adding, say, third-party amplifiers or more channels beyond the 9.2 the Elite offers, the Pioneer may not be for you. But if 9.2 channels gets it done, the Pioneer is likely all of the AV receiver 99% of you watching this are ever going to need. The Pioneer has Dirac Live built in, which is rather insane considering its asking price. It sounds utterly fantastic for both music and movies, especially Atmos setups utilizing upward firing Atmos speakers. Like both the ONKYO 5100 and RZ50, the Pioneer is next-gen video capable, though not all of its HDMI inputs are created equal. The first three will allow for a 40 gigabits per second connection, whereas the other three are limited to 24, but this isn't a deal breaker for the Pioneer, still allows for more connection options than the Marantz as well as the costlier Denon. The RZ50 is arguably the best receiver on the market right now when you consider price and performance. There's little this receiver can't do. It is a 9.2 channel receiver with full preamp outputs for 11.2 channels, meaning you can expand its capability and power over time if the internal 120 watts per channel amps aren't enough. In our test, the ONKYO's power rating seems conservative. It drove even difficult to drive speakers like the PSB T600 towers with zero issue. And the sound quality is just so good. I love this receiver for both 2-channel listening as well as home theater. Its Dolby Atmos performance is fantastic and among the best I've heard regardless of price. What's more, the RZ50 comes with Dirac Live built in, which is arguably the best room correction software in the game right now. And on most other devices that support Dirac costs extra, whereas with the RZ50, it's included. What's more, the RZ50 is fully 8K 60, 4K 120 ready out of the box with all of its HDMI inputs and outputs supporting some form of next-gen capability. This means if you own more than one console and wish to have them connected at the same time, or you just want to game at the highest level possible, the RZ50 is likely going to be for you. It also means that as more devices, aside from gaming consoles, come to market, you will also be able to connect them as well. The biggest drawback to the RZ50 is the fact that of all the receivers on this list, it has proven to be the most difficult to get a hold of in 2021. That said, stock is being replenished all of the time, so if the RZ50 sounds like it might be the AV receiver for you, put your order in now so that when new shipments come in, you'll already be on the list and more likely to receive one quickly. But if the thought of waiting for an RZ50 to come back in stock isn't your bag, I would recommend shopping for a comparable Pioneer Elite receiver, as we have found the performance between Pioneer and ONKYO to be similar if not the same, which isn't surprising given that they're under the same ownership. So while the RZ50 may be the IT receiver for 2021, it may be possible to snag a comparable Pioneer Elite receiver now and potentially save a few $100 in the process. So that's it. That is my top 5 AV receivers for 2021. But now it's time to find out if Kristi has anything to add to the list.
I mean, I have a couple.
Okay.
But I think before I even get into that, I think we need to address the elephant in the room.
Uh-oh.
And that is the fact that Yamaha is not represented on this list at all.
Yeah. Yamaha is not represented on this list. And
I think people are going to have some feelings.
Yeah. Okay, look, I'm going to tell you why. I love me some Yamaha receivers. I've been a Yamaha receiver customer for many, many years over the course of my hi-fi and home theater journey. They're not on the list this year because I think Yamaha has a bit of a problem. And that is, I think they are a bit spec obsessed at the moment, meaning they are building arguably really great AV receivers with phenomenal specs that are proving to measure up to some truly high-end claims. That said, they're very much focused on their hardware and their build quality. And I have a bunch of comments about build quality, but that notwithstanding, their software and their implementation of features, in my opinion, lately has been nuttier than squirrel turds. And the other problem with Yamaha right now is it seems like the full functionality of their receivers is all based largely on promises or firmware updates to come. And so it makes it very, very hard to judge their ultimate real world performance compared to other receivers that are ready to go right now. So yes, Yamaha makes some fine sounding receivers, and yes, they make some very powerful receivers that have great warranties and again, arguably great build quality. But in the real world, the things that you're actually going to use, the way in which you use them, they are woefully behind. And that is why, at least for me, they are not on this list.
I mean, because we almost included the Yamaha V6A on the list, which we really like. We still have it.
Still have it.
And we still use it from time to time when we're testing home theater speakers and such like that. And just for, to be completely open, the reason why we actually ultimately took it off the list is because I think for me personally, for a customer to have to go through the hassle of figuring out whether or not the one that they're looking to buy is the newer model or has the updates that it's supposed to have, it's too much trouble.
It is.
And I think, if you end up not having one of those new ones and you have to go through the hassle of like returning it or sending it in for the update. And I know there are some people that have let us know, at least in the comments, from their experience of, they already had bought the V6A, like that they're still waiting on updates.
Yeah.
And things like that. So that made it really hard to include it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I'll go on record and say that if you're not into next gen video features, if you don't need that sort of a thing, 1080p or 4K 30, even 4K 60, that is enough for you. Then the V6A, whether you have an old one or a new one with the updated board, will serve you just fine. But a lot of receivers going back even 4 and 5 years now will serve you just fine. This list is if you're in the market right now and you want the most capable future-proof receiver going into 2022, these would be the receivers to shop for, not the V6A.
At least in our opinion.
In our opinion, yes.
Must add the asterisk disclaimer.
Yes.
Okay, so enough about Yamaha. Now, the ones that I would include on the list, while I know technically we haven't reviewed these, I would get either the ONKYO 6100 or 7100 over the 5100.
Okay.
And the reason I would do this, well, obviously, if you have the budget to go up market just a little bit, like I think you would spend about $200 more for the 6100, and then, oh gosh, I can't remember exactly what the price of the 7100.
Yeah.
That's probably like closer to 400.
Yeah.
Maybe puts you in direct competition with
The Pioneer.
or maybe
It's a little bit below Denon.
The Marantz.
Yeah. Well, Marantz is $9.99. So I think it's just above Marantz, maybe around Pioneer, but slightly below Denon.
Yeah. So anyway, like I said, if you can increase your budget just a little bit, which may mean like saving a little bit longer, and I would skip the 5100 because these other two from ONKYO, they're a little bit more powerful. They both of them have 100 watts, and you don't have to deal with the push pins. So that to me is worth the extra money. And from my experience, even though we haven't technically tested these, I'm confident that they would be similar enough to the RZ50 that it would be a safe buy. I mean, it's kind of like when people ask about a smaller or larger version of a speaker we just reviewed. I'm like, it's going to be pretty similar.
Yeah.
So just look at the specs that matter to you and then decide if one of these would be a good bet. But for me, I would be willing to get one sight unseen, or in this case, unheard.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart way to go. And I think that's the way AV receivers, at least lately, are definitely being manufactured and marketed, where it's like you're going to have your flagship. I'm going to use the RZ50 as an example. And then for like $100 or $200 less, you're obviously going to back off the power a little bit. You may miss one or two features. But,
Or
channels. But on the whole, there's going to be more similarity in the line than there is difference. And so if you are someone that's like, I don't need 11.2 channels of preamp outputs, save the money, get the one below. And if you're like, I just want to use the built-in amplifiers, or I don't need that phono preamp, or I don't need, extra coaxial or optical digital inputs, really look at those things, because those are the types of features that are actually going to save you money when shopping for an AV receiver, if you can go without them, because the user experience, the menus, the features, things like Dirac Live, those features start at much lower price points than, say, an RZ50. And so if those are the things you really want, like Kristi said, really kind of look over the feature list, not so much the spec sheet, but the feature list, and decide what you can do with and without, and then purchase accordingly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anything else?
No, I mean, I really thought that it was a really solid list. Mm-hmm. I completely agree with everything that was on there. That the one exception was the 5100 from ONKYO. I mean, obviously, if your maximum budget is $600 or so that receiver costs, then it's a great receiver. There's nothing wrong with it.
No.
I just think that for a little bit more money, if you have that in your budget, it's worth it.
Completely agree. I completely agree. The biggest hang up I have with the 5100 are those push pins and the build quality, because even to just review that particular product, I had to go out and buy all new speaker cables for the surround channels, the center channel and whatnot, because our cables just didn't fit. And so if you're shopping for the first time, then, buy, 14 gauge speaker wire and you'll be fine. But if you already own, say, 12 gauge speaker wire or thicker, maybe a problem. So just keep that in mind. All right, so that is now our list of the top 5 AV receivers of 2021.
Top 5-ish.
Top 5-ish AV receivers of 2021. What did you guys think? Let us know down in the comments below. And my question of the day for you is what?
What is
our question of the day today?
Okay, the question is, did your favorites make the list? What would be in your top 5?
Yeah. What would be in your top 5? Because I can already, I'm imagining there's going to be some of you that are like, no NAD, no Rotel, WTF.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Where's the anthem and RCAM? Oh, well,
where are they?
That's the question I have. Where are they?
Yeah.
Why aren't you responding to my emails?
So yes, let's get a conversation started on what would be your favorite receivers of 2021. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go ahead and ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Kristi left for you down below, and she always leaves a few, know that is a great way that you have continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here. And we both thank you guys very much for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile, and that is it for today.
It only took you 12 times.
Only took me 12 takes to do this sign off. You would think after hundreds of videos, this I've got nailed, but I don't. So hope you all had a great holiday, and let's just wrap it up. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you again for watching. We're going to see you on the next video. All right.